Welcome back to another edition of Sons Today. My name is Adam. On this particular episode of the program, we have new UCF Hall of Famer Marc Giacone joining us. You get to know a little bit about Marc and his journey through UCF. Such a cool story. I think you'll love hearing a little bit about his journey and how he feels about UCF. So you don't want to miss this. But before we get to that, don't forget, we're brought to you by our good friends at Werner, Hoffman, Greig Garcia. You can find them at wernerhoffman.com. And hey, if you're dealing with any issues post these last two hurricane storms, maybe some with your insurance company, maybe you're battling, you don't know what to do, trying to get some advice, Werner, Hoffman, Greig Garcia can help you out. Michael Hoffman is a personal friend of mine. He's a UCF alum. He's a veteran. He will absolutely take care of you. So if you're not quite sure what to do, maybe you're getting the runaround, maybe you just want some advice, you want to get some perspective, Werner, Hoffman, Greig Garcia can help you out. Find them at wernerhoffman.com or call them at 1-800-320-HELP. Again, Michael Hoffman will take care of you, will give you the right information, and definitely point you in the right direction. Now, hey, let's talk to Marc Giacone. All right, welcome back to Sons Today, and I am joined by Marc Giacone, UCF Hall of Famer. First off, Marc, thanks for joining me. But second, how does it feel to hear your name and UCF Hall of Famer behind it?
It's surreal, I guess. It was. I can't express how unbelievable, but it feels very good. When you saw the podcast, when I initially given the call, there were some tears. I've learned to kind of hold in my emotions for now until the actual ceremony is until next week. But it's an incredible honor. It really is.
Well,
It's an honor and a privilege, and I'm so looking forward to the ceremony. This is something that I obviously didn't aspire to when I first came in, but I really aspired to helping put UCF on the map, and my teammates and I did. So,
well, take me to that moment, Marc. The phone rings, the email comes, whatever. How do you get notified, and what was your initial reaction?
well, to be truthful, I knew before the actual call.
Okay.
Because they tell you, but the initial call that I got from someone on the committee, I can't mention, was, I thought, listen, I'm going to be frank. Did I think I deserved it? Did I think it was going to happen? I did. I did. Did I think it was going to happen? It was so late. It's 34 years past it. And when someone from the committee, who was a former teammate, called me, I didn't believe it. I actually said, nah, this is part of a dream that I've had. This is not happening. And when it happened, there was a euphoric feeling in my body, but also a relief. Part of that relief was since the Hall of Fame actually came to be about 20 years ago, my father was an advocate of me. He's a big fan, and he talked about the Hall of Fame constantly. Oh, why aren't you in? Why aren't you in? And then, unfortunately, I lost him 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And this happened was bittersweet. He never got to see it, but he knows I'm finally in. So it was wonderful.
I'm sorry to hear that, Marc. Have you thought about a speech yet? Do you have a suit picked out? Do you have all the logistics figured out?
Everything is picked out. The speech is still a work in progress, but it's almost there. It was it's very hard to do a speech because the last thing I want to do is sit there and talk about myself. But and then there's so many people I have to thank. You can't thank, but then it's 6 to 7 minutes. So every person you thank is like 10 seconds. So you got to be selective. So you almost got to say a disclaimer before you start talking. Listen, if I didn't mention your name, please forgive me. But what I do know is my teammates, if I don't mention their name, I'll never hear the end of it. So the speech is going to be mostly me mentioning their names one by one. So.
Who's the teammate you have to mention, or else he's going to be mad at you?
Perry Belasis, forget it.
Okay.
If I don't mention Perry, I'll never hear the end of it. Forget it.
Fair enough.
So,
Well, we were fortunate enough to have you on the podcast a couple of years back, and really enjoyed that conversation. But take us back. How does a kid from Jersey end up in Orlando at UCF? Back then, the Golden Knights. How did that happen?
well, it happened by chance. Well, I'll tell you the story without telling you the whole story. UCF, my brother, who played college football for Townsend State, excuse me, where's my water? Oh, there we go. And he had played with a player, he played in the NFL, his name was Crawford Kirk. Crawford Kirk heard of UCF and he says, send your highlight tapes to UCF. It's an up and coming school. So I call them, I send my tape, they call me, come see the school. And this is in July of 1986. This is right before camp, excuse me. And so they say, hey, one of the guys turned down their scholarship, come and see the school. So my dad and I hop on a plane, a Continental. Now, so we get there. We arrive, we stay at Coach McDowell's house. That day, the day after, we're in Coach McDowell's office. And it's Coach McDowell, my father, is the assistant, Randy Romero, and myself. So Coach McDowell looks at me, looks at my dad, he addresses my dad. He goes, Mr. Giacone, we're going to offer your son, which amounted to about a half scholarship. Now, my dad was a blue collar guy, but um, he's, a smart guy, but he looks at Coach McDowell. He says, my son's going to come here for a half scholarship. And without hesitation, he goes, Coach, thank you for your hospitality. He gets up. He goes, Marc, get up. So we get up. We start walking towards the door. Coach McDowell stops us. He goes, Mr. Giacone, he goes, take a seat. He goes, Randy, he goes, write Giacone up for a full ride. And that's how I ended up at UCF. So that right then and there was how I arrived there. And then, it wasn't a question. When I got on campus, when I saw everything, I played I played for a school that wasn't a big school. So we didn't have a lot of Division I schools coming there. So once I stepped on UCF, I knew there was no other school I wanted to play for. Black and gold was what I will always wear. And they couldn't get me out of there if they tried.
Well, again, you're going to step on campus next weekend, but the campus you stepped on in 1987 had to be drastically different from what we have today. Can you describe the 1987 UCF football facilities and the different resources that were available to you back then?
Well, let's see here. We had our facility, which which was the Wayne Dench facility. That's where the coaches were. We had our locker rooms, which were you know, older locker rooms. There was nothing, we had old equipment. I mean, all hand me down. A lot of the equipment were hand me downs from Florida State because, Coach and Bobby Bowden were friends and he coached for him. So the grass was mostly patches. The campus, we still had the reflecting pond,
Okay,
but
good.
we had a couple of buildings. The workout facility was about the size of this room, which is no more than 1,000 square feet. It was tiny. Um, what else could I
Were
describe?
you there for the dome? Was that the dome back in the day?
The dome, as
The dome
far as
workout facility?
no, that's are you kidding me? No. Oh, the dome work. Yes, that was the facility that anybody could work out at.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
the dome with no air conditioning. Yes.
Sure.
That was that's when our facility wasn't was locked or whatever. We went to work out there. Right? How'd you know about the dome? I guess
I,
somebody was.
we, we've 250 episodes of this, Mark. We've talked to a lot of
Oh, I'm
people
sure the
who've shared a
dome.
lot of secrets.
Yeah. The dome was a beautiful thing. But it's funny. Back then, it wasn't that big of a deal because I mean, the first place I've ever worked at was an abandoned church with a couple of benches and a couple of 45s, and you made do. So, but it's funny that I didn't really see the campus as was what it was. Which it wasn't anything glorious, I saw the campus and my teammates alone, with them. We saw it as something much bigger. I mean, this was our university. This was our school, and we were going to make it, something special. I never ever thought, what it wasn't a dump, but I never thought of like, oh, we don't have these facilities, or it's not normal to get expired gate after practice. We used to have these garbage pails, and they were filled with Gatorade, but they were all expired Gatorade. Right, so we have to shake it real stuff to get off the bottom, but it was cold, so we were glad to have it. You know, so but even then we didn't think, we didn't say, oh, this is really disgusting. We were like, wow, we got cold Gatorade. So, but we made do, and you know, you didn't look at the campus. We looked at each other. We looked at our players. That was the campus. That's what we were going to build our rock upon.
But
And
yeah,
yeah, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
kind of unique. You saw playing time right away your freshman year. I mean, back in those days, freshmen typically didn't play a ton. You saw a ton of playing time. I think you had over 500 rushing yards that first year. Were you ready for college football your first year? Were you physically and mentally ready to take on, at that point, obviously mid-major, mid-level college football?
Well, my first year, my true freshman year, I redshirt.
Okay.
So coming into my redshirt freshman year, I lived in the gym. That's all I did. I worked out, ran, did whatever I had to do. And when I arrived, I was ready. I knew I was ready. I mean, don't want to sound cocky, but I mean, why else would you be there if you didn't think you were ready? So it's funny. While I'm doing my speech, I was talking about this story, which is not going to be included in my speech because it's just too much to include. But because I gained like 15 pounds, 20 pounds maybe, they wanted to switch me to fullback, which I was not going to have because I was one of the fastest and strongest guys on the team. I said, I'm a running back. So they said, oh, you're going to be third string running back. So you're not going to see me any time. I said, okay. I said, I'm a running back. I'll wait my turn. I'm playing tailback. Yeah, over a couple games, first string tailback got hurt, second string tailback got hurt, and then I got my opportunity. And it was kind of storybook for me, to play in a college football game. And I got in, and it's funny. My girlfriend will give me hell because I've told this story, so she thinks I'm fooling myself. But the first time I got in the huddle, I'll never forget, and I'm sure the legendary quarterback Darren Slack. Um, he looks at me and he calls the play. It was like a 43 ISO. He was calling my number. And he grabs me by the face neck and he looks me in the eye. He goes, Giacone, don't drop the ball. So I said, so I get all this adrenaline through my body. And so they hand it off. Now, my first run from scrimmage was over 40 yards.
Wow.
And that game, I broke the school record. And it was magical. And then I called my family, and they're going nuts. And so ever since then, I didn't relinquish my spot because it was mine. So they say players, you know, uh, they have to be team players, but specialty positions are different
Hmm.
because if you don't think you belong, if you don't think that you should have that ball, then you shouldn't be there in the first place. Of course, I shared time, with Willie my senior year.
Sure.
It was like, probably 60-40, I ran the ball 60-40, but, when I was glad, you know, we had Willie, forget about it. But you want that ball, and I wanted that ball. And I was fortunate, my circumstances worked out.
Take us back to the practice schedule back in your day, Mark. I mean, today kids play, 45 minutes in shells and pads. I mean, take us to the practice regimen back then and how brutal some of those practices were.
It was nothing more than a nightmare. Okay. Let's see here. We wake up. This was during 3 days. So it was 5 days or 3 days. We'd wake up and we have to be on the field by like 7:30. We would have a full 2 hour practice, which was like 24 periods because 5 minutes per period. And nowadays, forget about the length of the practice. There was live hitting from the beginning to the very end. And then we went in, we had a little snack, and then we had lunch, and then we were on second practice. which was another 24 periods, another 2 hours. No shells, full pads, full go. Now, sometimes, like 50-50, the third practice was in shells. Very rarely, I would not say like 50-50. And so we had the third practice in the evening. And then dinner, study hall, and then to bed. So basically, let me see, 14 hours of your day was football. And it was grueling, but we didn't know any better. We just thought this is how it is, and that's what we do. And, now I look back, it was probably one of the greatest times I've ever had, you know, sitting on the field, dying of sweat, but it was, I mean, me and my teammates, we laugh about it, but we're proud that we were able to do that. And we did it because we would look at each other and, if we, if we complained, we would give each other hell and we would just push each other. And as much as the coaches like to give themselves credit sometimes that they pushed us, now Coach Riddell was really good at that when he wanted to be, but we pushed each other because we had one common goal, and it was grueling. Well, did I forget about the 3 days of 2 days right after that? So we had 5 3 days, 5 days of 3 days, and then 3 days of 2 days, and then regular practice. So when the games came around, they were easy. Oh my God, they were so easy, and um, that was our reward. And I hated bye weeks. Bye weeks were the worst because that means we had to practice 2 weeks to play one game. So uh, it was challenging, but it made it. Excuse me. It made it easier that we had each other.
Mark, how
But
did you get?
it still was hard.
How did you get, or how did you earn the nickname Magnet Man?
I guess it was early on, um, because I would get in the open field, and let's say I was on the right sideline, and just a little bit over on the hash, there was the cornerback. Not a quarterback, cornerback, and I would much rather run that cornerback over than run in the open field. It was more satisfying. So then they used to call me Magnet Man because I'd be attracted to some other player. So it's just more gratifying. I know I was a dumb kid, but it was more, anybody can run in an open field, but to truck somebody, now that's a challenge. So early on, I would say my freshman year, when I started playing my redshirt freshman year is when I started to get that nickname.
I read, and tell me if this is true. You were clocked at a 4.40. Is that correct?
Oh yes, oh yes. And when I first arrived on campus in '86, I forgot the coach who initially timed me, but it was 4.42 whatever, and he goes, Coach Cruz, look at this. He goes, there's something wrong. You ain't doing it right. So Coach Kruzik, Coach Kruzik takes the time, and I ran it through two more times. And one was like a 4.45. He's like, next time's a 4.43. So yeah, I had good wheels.
So how would you describe your game for those who haven't seen you play, your highlights? I mean, you mentioned obviously your speed back, but also like contact. For someone who never saw you play, how would you describe your game?
Well, um, I was north and south. As soon as you get the ball, I didn't waste much time looking around. I like to hit the ball, hit the hole as fast as possible, and put myself in a position where I was the one delivering the contact, not receiving it. And so it was, I would say, just quick, hit the hole. You know, if you had to go outside, you looked outside, but you make quick decisions. Never spinning or doing anything like that. Because the more time that you took reading tackles, if you weren't able to read quickly, then the guy from behind you is going to tackle you. So you had to make quick decisions. So hit the hole quick, make your decisions. Don't go east and west, all north and south. And it worked for me. You know, So there was one running back that, at all the NFL running backs that I loved, that I looked up to, and you're probably, well, too young to remember. His name was Earl Campbell.
Oh yeah, I know Rick Campbell. Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just loved the way he ran. And I also loved that every time he scored a touchdown, he would hand the ball to the referee.
Sure.
There was no spiking. So,
Well,
um,
I appreciate you think that I'm young. I'll take that A, but
yeah.
but B, something else that's interesting about your career, thinking back to when you played 1988, you suffered a pretty significant knee injury, right? And
Mhm.
today's day, 2024, right? I mean, there's so much science and doctors are so much smarter. In 1988, a knee injury like you suffered certainly could have been a huge setback. So I guess tell me a little bit about that injury, but tell me a little bit about your drive to kind of come back for that injury, because again, the science wasn't there, the medicine wasn't there, right? It was a different time and period. So take me back to the injury and sort of your drive to kind of come back from that.
Yeah. Well, I blew my knee out in, I think it was October 1st, 1988. And it was devastating because you realize that you're not going to play the rest of the year. I had ACL reconstruction. So um, it was it, it was a long road back. It's funny going through the rehab. I didn't start rehab until like these things October, until like really rehab until the spring, because I didn't really know I had to. I wasn't given much direction back then.
Sure.
So here I was, late in spring I started rehabbing, and then I wanted to get back, but earlier I mentioned how Coach McDowell was a good motivator. So this is this will show you how motivated I was. When I went into summer practice, we all scholarships back then, they may be the same now. It was 1 year at a time. It wasn't 4 year scholarships. So I went in to sign my scholarship with with Coach McDowell. We were all like waiting in line. That's how we did it back then. And he looks at me. This is '88. Me coming back for a knee injury, and he goes, "What are you doing here?" I go, "I'm here to sign my scholarship." Scholarship? He goes, "What scholarship?" I'm like, "My football scholarship." He's like, "Well," he goes, "let's see how you do in 3 days, and then we'll talk about your football scholarship." So here I'm like, "Oh my God." I said, "There's no way I'm going back to New Jersey." So every morning I wake up like 5 o'clock in the morning. I would take like 1,000 milligrams of aspirin just to get my body moving. And over I had the best 3 days probably I've ever had since all the years I went there. And then, um, so I was motivated to do two things: to keep my scholarship and to not go back home with my head in between my legs. So I'm walking down the hallway shortly after 3 days, and all of a sudden, Coach McDowell grabs me, pulls me in his office. I'm like, "Oh shit, what did I do? Right? Excuse me. What I what did I do now?" So he sits me down, doesn't say a word, goes around to his desk, pulls a drawer out, throws a scholarship. He goes, "Great job." So some people would say, "Oh, he was going to take a scholarship." I said, "No, he was trying to motivate me. He did." And I thanked him, till the day he died about that. I mean, for anybody I thought he cared. I mean, if you were Coach McDowell guy, he would do everything he can to motivate you, to bring the best out of you. But anyway, after that happened, now there were a lot of things. They brought in this stud. His name was Willie English.
Mm.
And so here I was, coming back for a knee injury, but I was slowly coming back. And so they bring in Willie to replace me. Now they have Gil Barnes, which is fantastic tailback. He was there also. So the first game of the season, I didn't see much time. Second game, so then they put me in against this team, that East Tennessee State. And I'll never forget, like it's yesterday. I'm going around the end, and then all of a sudden the wheels kicked back in, and I ran like a 45-yard touchdown. Well, ever since that play, um, I was the starter, and not only did I get my starting job back, but I won the MVP that year. So um, tell me I can't do it, and I will try to prove you wrong. And that was my motivation. But it was also my motivation to sit in the huddle. That was my biggest motivation, because once you sit down in the huddle with your teammates and you got that common goal and you're willing to do anything for them, that's what you miss. And that's what I want to get back to. And my circumstances. You got to excuse me, I'm a little nasal. Um, but that was my motivation. I was very motivated. And listen, there's a luck factor that goes into anything, and that luck factor is a lot bigger than people think. You know, you got to be lucky you don't get injured again.
Sure.
You got to be lucky if the coach is in a good mood; it doesn't take you out. You got to be lucky that you don't fumble because you'll never see the. There's so many things.
Well, I mean, 98 was good for you. 1990, even better. I mean, you at that point set a school record in rushing yards. I think it was 923. Obviously, you and Willie English were a 1-2 punch. The team had a ton of success as well. What clicked in 1990 for you? I mean, again, your senior year at that point. How did that all kind of culminate and come together for you?
First and foremost, it was actually 1250, including the playoffs, as
Okay,
far as the
fair.
yards.
Good
Just
call.
because
Okay.
back then, just to clarify, I was the first 1,000 yard rusher. It was the playoffs included. So just to let you know, yeah, it was
Okay.
1250. Just want to clarify, you know.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, yeah. What clicked? Well, a lot of us, especially, no, actually, a lot of us, especially on offense, we had been together for 4 years, so we knew each other. And you know, you build the confidence. You know, you don't question, you know, if they're going to do their job. It's just a matter of when they're going to do their job. It's so when you're together all these years, and we were stacked. I mean, we had offense, defense. I mean, geez, just on defense, we had two guys that got drafted. You know, both in the third round the same year, Rick Hamilton and Bob Spitolski. Not to mention on offense, you had Sean Beckton, you had Sean Jefferson, who played 11 years in the NFL. You know, we had, I think, what, 5 or 6 guys that played in the NFL for those teams. So we were stacked, but we also knew each other. We played for each other. We were never out of a game. So we never went into any single game thinking that we didn't have a chance to win. Unfortunately, Georgia Southern always had our number.
Yeah, 2-10 against Georgia Southern all
Oh
time, which is
God.
still crazy to me. But
Oh,
and look, we
I
talk
see.
about big games now with UCF, but 1990, the game against Youngstown State, for those who are old enough to remember and who have been following the program for a long time, that was at that point the biggest game for our program. Youngstown undefeated. You all head up there. Obviously, it's Ohio. It's cold. It's the playoffs, 1AA. What do you remember about that day when you all upset Youngstown State?
Well, first and foremost, before we left, we didn't have turf shoes, so we didn't how we were going to have to play in our cleats, um, because we didn't have turf shoes. Mike Stapp was who was the first running back at UCF, and he was also a booster. He bought us turf shoes that we received the day before we left, and when we went there, it was freezing cold. It was freezing rain, and from the get go, though, we were just so pumped. I mean, when we received the news, I don't know if it's even there. The village, was it the village uh, dorms? Is that still there?
CVI,
Is
Collegiate
that
Village
yes,
Inn.
yes, yes,
No, it's
yes?
long gone. That's long.
Okay,
I think that's like a Chipotle now.
oh, okay. I have no idea. I remember us watching the TV and watching the rankings, and that was one. But what people don't know is we were number 18. So at that time, we didn't think we made it. But who was it? Jackson State, maybe Grambling, whatever. Weren't they had their annual game, so they weren't eligible for the playoffs. So we made it in, and I can tell you that. Excuse me. One thing you learn about athletes, and I'm probably not the first, but we get emotional when we talk about certain things.
Sure, sure.
Well, when I found out I was playing another game, oh, we were so ecstatic. Half of us had tears in our eyes because we knew we were going to play one more game together. So there was there was no there was no cold, there was no freezing rain. When we went there, all we knew was we had an opponent we had to win to get to the next round. So we went in there right to the get go, and the offensive line was just putting those guys on sleds, and Willie and I in the first half had like 150 yards, and we just even though the game was close, it shouldn't have been that close because we we started passing a lot. We should have stayed with the running game, but we won. Doesn't matter. But it was the obviously the biggest. Yeah, I agree. It was no game ever came close to that game. It was our biggest game and our biggest moment, and we responded.
I'm 0 for 2 on stats, so let me try for a third time. I believe in that game, you had 191 rushing yards
Yeah,
and a
yeah,
touchdown.
yes.
Were you just in a zone that day, Mark? Take us back to your performance that day, and it sounds like you were obviously pretty emotional, pretty ready to play. But what do you remember about your performance that day?
I remember that the turf was so hard, it felt like concrete. So I did everything I could not to get tackled. I did not want to land in that turf. So, like any other game, I never took a playoff. So, but it was, I don't know, just think of something that you love that you're never going to do again. It's a motivator. And we were all that way. Everybody played the game of their life. Everybody. It wasn't just me. It was Perry. It was Ron Johnson. It was Craig Morris. It was Tom Blakely. It was Ray Irvin. It was Bob Satulski. It was Robert Lindsay. We all played the game of our life because you go through athletes really are emotional. This brings back emotion. I'm sorry,
Sure, no, absolutely.
but everybody had the game of their life, and there was no quit. So it was a wonderful game, wonderful experience. We'll never forget. But it wasn't over, which was even more beautiful after that.
Yeah, you were part of a couple memorable games in your time at UCF. Another one that's kind of legendary and famous at this point now is the noise penalty game.
Yes, Troy State.
Uh,
Yeah.
what do you remember about that game? What can you tell us about that experience?
I just remember the noise penalty. I remember that two things. I remember when Gil Barnes had the go ahead touchdown, and I had the touchdown to put us up by 8. And we were getting revenge for the year prior. It
Sure.
was, and I think there was 32,000 people in the stands or something like that, which was unheard of for Division Two. So, you know, again, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, have you been to the new stadium? Have you been to the on campus
Yeah,
stadium? Okay,
I
so
was there. I was there for the first time last year.
so for people who don't know, I mean, again, I was there in the late '90s, so I remember. But you played in the Citrus Bowl back then. Can you describe the Citrus Bowl and what that playing? I mean, look, I love the troughs in the bathroom, but I'm sure
Yeah.
the locker rooms were even better. Can you describe the facilities you all had at the Citrus Bowl back then?
Well, to us, compared to our practice facility, it was beautiful. I mean, and what you see at the Citrus Bowl is you see a lot of empty seats. But we did pretty well. Um, you'd be surprised, and I'm sure a lot of players say this, but when you play, I don't care where you play, you don't really see what's going on behind you.
Hmm,
I mean, the Citrus Bowl I mean, it was huge. I mean, it was 60,000, I thought so,
yeah,
but
sure.
it was to us. To me, it was just a much nicer locker room than what we had. So, but it was just another stadium, same dimensions. But it was our stadium, so we were comfortable there.
Obviously, you've talked a little bit about Coach McDowell. Again, with at the risk of, I don't want to make you much more emotional,
No,
but
it's
obviously
okay. It's okay.
he
Those are good emotions.
he obviously we lost him a few years ago. What did he mean to your career, and how much, as you think about going to the Hall of Fame, how much is he on your mind as you think about this day coming up?
Okay, you triggered emotion.
Okay, my bad.
you know, Coach McDowell, and everybody has a different story about Coach. Some people, uh, you know, didn't understand what he was trying to do, and he was trying to motivate you. But as far as what he was like, I mean, I had my own father, and he was, very motivating. But Coach McDowell he was more than just a coach. He was a mentor. He was a father figure. If he believed in you, you would do anything for him. You would go through a brick wall, not even thinking twice, and he knew that, and he knew how to get the best of the people. If you were his guy, you were his guy, and but there was you did. In other words, just because I started the year before doesn't mean I was going to start this year. He made you work for everything.
Yeah.
But as far as the man, I loved him. I loved Coach McDowell. I would have done anything for him. I cried like a baby when he died. So
Yeah.
it's he was a great man. It broke my heart for all those years that he was ostracized by the school. Part of the big reason I didn't come back for years is because I didn't see him get acknowledged, because without him, the program would have been bankrupt. I
Yeah.
mean, there would be no UCF football. I know he wasn't the first one, but at that time, we had no money. We were in bankruptcy. Coach McDowell took the AD job for $1, uh, and he took these ragtag kids that were very talented, and he actually made something of us.
Yeah.
And so, him getting the Hall of Fame, I did have a dream. I had a dream. I didn't pray for it, but I had a dream that him and I would go in the Hall of Fame together. And I missed it by 1 year.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful that not only he got in the Hall of Fame, that his wife and his son Blake got to see him go in the Hall of Fame. You know, they were there last year. They invited me. I sat at their table, and that was a big relief to see that. It broke my heart though. It really, because I really wanted him to see that. But he was not bitter about it. He was never the circumstances, and I'm sure you heard what happened back in the '90s.
Sure.
If Coach McDowell had to do that over 1,000 times, he would do the same thing. He would always look out for his players. Always. He would always take the heat for them, and that's what you loved about him. You know.
One of the things, Mark, I'm most grateful about, doing this kind of show on this platform is I've actually developed a pretty close relationship with Coach Paul Lounsbury. He comes on our show every week. And so I texted him and asked him a little bit about Mark. And his quote to me was, and I'll read it to you, I loved Mark both as a person and as a player. What do you remember about Coach Lounsbury from back in the day?
Oh, let me say, he was the most terrifying man I've ever met in my life. I've never been more, except for Coach McDowell, I've never been more scared of a man than Coach Lounsbury. No, I love him, love Coach Lounsbury. But when he first arrived there, oh my God, he was big, he was jacked. I guess he was in his late 20s, early 30s, but he was tough. Oh my God, was he tough? But he was the well, I don't want to say he was the best position coach, because then my running back coach would get mad. But he was meticulous with his offensive line, and he gave us, I mean, over and over and over. Uh, he would make those guys do it, but I couldn't ask for a better coach. He tries to play like he's this nice grandfather now, but it's,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all a sham. I don't believe any of it.
Okay, I'm gonna call him out on that next time.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
mentioned obviously Perry Belasis, but what other teammates are you looking forward to connecting with when you get back down to Orlando? Who are you really hoping to see there? Or who are you really looking forward to reconnecting with?
Let me say, I mean, there's so many, and let me see, Perry, John. Probably one of my closest friends was John Osborne, tight end,
Okay,
Ozzy. I haven't seen Willie in over 3 decades. Ron Johnson, the quarterback. I think Andrew Bishop's coming. He was the left guard. Tom Lampley. My entire offensive line. Um, Spitolsky, I haven't seen in a while. Rick Hamilton, Ray Irvin. I mean, I like to say there's just one, but there's not. It's you build that bond over the years. It's just that whole team. I actually invited everybody. I mean, individually to come. And there should be a lot more people from my team. I hope. I
yeah.
pray. Um, but during those years, I was unfortunately closest to Perry, because I had to be, because nobody else liked him. uh, But yeah, I guess Perry. I saw Perry last year, which was wonderful, and uh, John Osborne and I hung out the whole time. Like, we haven't missed a beat. Uh, we see I just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody of vital importance. Let's just say everybody
Everybody.
from
Okay.
those teams from '87 to 1990. They were so special to me. They really were. Oh God, who am I forgetting? Uh,
Let's just do a disclaimer. If your name was not
yeah,
mentioned, Mark is thinking about you. Do
exactly,
not worry the least
exactly.
bit about it. Mark, I can't help but look at you now. You look like you could still play today. I
Uh,
mean, you got some pretty good arms on you there. Obviously, you're keeping yourself in good shape. What's the workout regimen looking like for you?
uh, I do my best, get in a couple days a week, and
Sure.
watch my diet. See, I'm in better shape than I usually am because I'm coming to the ceremony, so
Gotcha.
I had
Okay.
to get in shape.
Okay. there's always a secret. Well,
But
while you're
but thank you. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that.
well, while you're there, though, I hopefully you'll get a chance to watch the 2024 version of the Knights play.
Oh
Obviously, Arizona is playing that day. Have you seen the night? What do you make of UCF right now? Obviously, in a bit of a losing streak, rough year last year. What do you kind of make of the current version of the Knights and what you've seen so far?
well, they're very talented. Uh, they're struggling. Teams struggle. This happens. I mean, it's hard to play um, in today's college football because you don't really get 4 years to build that relationship with your teammates because of the transfer portal.
Yeah,
And I'm not speaking against it, but I had the luxury of knowing my teammates for 4 years or 3 years, a couple of years. They don't know their teammates for a year, 6 months sometimes. It's hard
yeah,
because I'll give you a perfect example. This is the ball we had. Alex Goforth, who was our offensive tackle, and he was a right offensive tackle, 6'5", 340 pounds. He missed the block, and I got hit in the back. I got hit, in the backfield. All of a sudden, next play, before the next play, he's in the locker room. He's in a huddle. He's crying. And we cried about it. I go, I'm sorry, G, I missed that play. He was sincere. He was that upset. That's how close of a bond we had in that team. Nowadays, like, well, I'm not going to see that guy next year. So what I care. So
yeah,
it is tremendous disadvantage, especially for if you're like an old school coach at all, you can't coach the same way. I feel that I don't know much about, I understand the transfer portal. Now, nil is a completely different story. I
yeah,
won't even go into that. But I feel bad for the kids. They're very talented. UCF is very talented, very fast. I love Harvey's.
yeah,
I mean, the team in general, but, a big conference too.
yeah.
But I don't want to speak up against. I mean, I love my team, no matter if they win or they lose. But for their sake, I hope they win, of course, and they better win. When I come out there,
Uh,
so
how much pride do you take? You're going to step on that field, obviously, on what November 2nd, 2024. Watch UCF play Arizona. They're going to be wearing these space uniforms, right? This cool new uniform set that they wear one time a year in their own stadium on campus. All these bells and whistles. How proud are you to think about that? You were one of the people who helped build that foundation. What does that mean to you?
means everything. It's the fact that my teammates and I were part of that, and the sacrifice we made. It was all worth it. I mean, um, I couldn't be more proud of. Not going to cry this time, I
Okay,
promise.
all right, I got you. Okay, my bad.
No, 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 no. But it means everything, though. That we were there to. Uh, it it makes it even more worth it. I mean, not that this is a good thing, but today back then there was no such thing as a concussion or a broken finger or a broken rib. You just played through it. Not saying it's good, but that's a sacrifice we were willing to make. So UCF could be where they are today. And I know me, and I know my teammates never like. I mean, as proud as we are, as proud as I am where they are today, I thought they would be there a little sooner.
Mm,
You know, um, but I'm so proud. I couldn't be. I mean, it's incredible. I just want to see those kids stay together to stop. I mean, there's nothing like wearing the black and gold. and I truly believe this. Our fans are the best fans. They're crazy as heck. I mean, they're annoying as heck. Oh my God,
Yes, absolutely. Yes, tell me about
jeez, they're obnoxious, and I just love them. I mean,
it.
think about it. We were Division II. We had 30,000 people that were willing to drive all the way to the Citrus Bowl, which was not an easy drive. And but I wish these kids will just leave it all out of the field and stay with the team. Stop giving up just so you didn't start or whatever. Just but that to me is everything. Looking at that, it's. I think last year it was very emotional because the first time I've been there in a while,
Yeah.
and I just couldn't believe it. And I got to be honest, I thought it was really the coolest thing I saw is on the outside, the stadium. They had the plaques or whatever with
Yeah.
the Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And listen, it's a privilege and it's an honor to be in the Hall of Fame. I said, wow, if I haven't gotten the Hall of Fame, which seeing that was pretty awesome. And knowing I'll be there next year. Oh my, not next year, this year. So it's cool. It's kind of cool, just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah. But listen, man. First off, congratulations again on a great career. B,
Thank you.
such a well deserved honor getting into the UCF Hall of Fame.
I
Everything you
appreciate it.
represent, everything you've done for the university is certainly well established, and I think this honor is well deserved for you. So, on behalf of Night Nation, let me extend our gratitude to you for what you've done and our sincere just appreciation for this, and congratulations on the honor of being a Hall of Famer.
Thank you so much for everything. I appreciate having you on. You know, and I'll see you. Will you be there on Saturday?
Yeah, yes, I actually will be there Saturday. Yes, I
Okay.
will. I will be
All
there.
right.
Yeah, so I will. I'm not sure if I'm going to the ceremony just yet, but I'll definitely be there for the game. So I'll see if I can't look you
Oh
up.
wait, no, no. I was talking about the duck thing.
Oh no, that's a Friday. No, that's I'm not gonna.
Oh,
I can't be there for the duck
oh,
thing.
okay,
No,
okay.
no,
Well,
no.
well, hopefully we can meet up.
Okay.
All right. It was a
I look.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Take care. Charge on.
All right.